just an amazing opportunity, James. Thank you for welcoming me. So I'm gonna share a deck. I want to just say that I hate sharing decks because decks are these linear top-down, fixed things, and I'd love this to be just a big conversation. So I guess the way to say this is feel free to interrupt or share questions in the chat, and I'm going to try to go fast so we can leave lots of room for conversation. Um, and I'm going to be back regularly. So, okay, with that, I'm going to now try to share my deck. Um, let's pull this up here. Share. Okay, can you all see that? How about that? Wonders of technology. And I'm going to go to present mode, which means that I'm flying freestyle without the benefit of my notes, which is just as well. Oops, the daisy. Sorry. Excuse me one second. Let me get out of there. I didn't mean to start here. I meant to start at the beginning. So, but maybe that's a good note about nonlinear storytelling. Okay. So can you all see this slide and you can hear me? Yes? Great. Okay, let's go. So that's me. And I'm going to go a little bit quickly through this just to give you a little background on me, but I'm going to do it fast so that you don't have to be bored. I started my career in publishing. I still have Melcher Media, which makes beautiful books. These are just a few of them. We've been very honored to work with lots of cool people. Oh, I'm sorry, before I run this, one of the things, though, you should know about me is that I've always been trying to break out of the flat land of the printed page. My goal was always to make books interactive experiences. And this next one that I'm just going to show a 1 minute video of is the one we did with J.J. Abrams called S.
Charlie, just checking, is there supposed to be sound for this?
Just music. It's okay without it. It still works.
Okay.
Okay, sorry. I know it's not a humble brag if you put somebody else bragging about you. Anyway, that was a really wonderful, fun project, New York Times bestseller, and one of the great compliments I've ever received for any of our books, which was from Felix Barrett, who said, "Charlie, you're doing in print what I do in theater." uh, which was really very gratifying. Um, this was another book we were honored to work on, and this book led us to do this app, which was our first digital project. It was called Our Choice, and it uses the sensors in the phone or tablet to let you physically interact with the information, as you can see from these images, including blowing into the windmill and making it spin. And this app was a turning point in my life because it helped me to realize that our skills were not about ink and paper and binding, they were about storytelling. And we were honored with this app to have won Apple's award for Best Design of the Year back in 2011. And I only share this really because it was this moment when I realized that I was no longer in the book business and that I was in the business of telling stories. And that led to needing to create a new community. Basically, my friends in publishing were all hiding under their desks, hoping this digital thing would blow over. And I was now bit by the bug of the newly converted. And I was just desperate to explore all these new ways that people were telling stories. And so we started the FOSS Summit back in 2011. And that grew very quickly from a 1 day event for 300 to when we stopped because of COVID. We were doing a week's worth of programming for nearly 6,000 people. We also have the FOSS podcast. We do the FOSS Explorers Club. We do all sorts of pop-up things throughout the year in the newsletter. And so really, it's been an incredible honor over the last 15 years now to have as your job curating the future. and trying to bring together and find the people who are doing the most innovative and cutting edge work and get them cross-pollinating and collaborating and hopefully inventing the future. And so, just very quickly, Faust also now is a story studio, and we work with big companies to help them tell stories and make immersive experiences. So, launching Apple flagship store in DC, or the ISS spacewalk for Meta that we did with Felix and Paul, or some work we did for the Sphere. And now we're currently a big project that's about to open in July. Can't believe it. 6 years in the making is the Theodore Roosevelt Presidential Library, where we are both the executive storytellers and executive producers for a 30,000 square foot interactive immersive museum with all sorts of amazing media and traditional exhibits and interactive exhibits. Okay, so that's enough about my background. Um, all of that was a way to set up the fact that over the last 15 years, I have been so honored to be invited into some of the most extraordinary experiences of my life through a community of creators. Some of you on this call and the kind of work that you all do, and so I've been in those theaters and those garages and those labs and all these amazing places where people are pushing the boundaries of what it means to tell a story. And so this book is the culmination of my 15 years of learning from all of these amazing people, including, for example, Joseph Pine, Joe's here on the call, who's referenced in the book and was a major influence. But also, the book is a combination of what I've learned from these extraordinary creators and the insights and patterns and connections that I've seen, as well as a celebration of the community. So there are 50 extraordinary examples that are shown in pages from 2 pages to 6 pages of beautiful color photographs. And so really my hope is that first and foremost, this book is for the audience of creators and those whose work we're celebrating. It's for people who are in the larger community, let's say immersive curious or starting to make. My hope is that it will help to build, expand the pie, if you will, bring investors in, bring business people in, help people who are in more traditional media start to think about doing things that are experimental and immersive. And then, of course, for the fans, because there's so many great examples of things for people to do in here. And they can be inspired by those. And then finally, I will say it's also a time capsule, right? Because it represents the state of the world of immersive at this moment in time, and celebrates the best of the work. And in many cases, we are still so early. This is like the early days of cinema, and so here is a record, if you will, of amazing work at this point in human history. Okay. So I've broken the book into these chapters, and it's basically the realization that for me, the pattern I saw was that the best immersive work and next generation storytelling aspired to have all of these components. It was agentic, it was immersive, it was embodied or multisensorial, it was responsive, so personalized and responding, social. And if you did all of those things well, it would stay with you and change you. It would be transformative. So this is the chapters of the book, and also what I think are the essential components of great immersive storytelling. And I'm going to run us through them here with some examples. Agentic. So co-create choices with meaning. So one of the fundamental shifts of the 21st century, and forgive me because you all know more about this than I do, so forgive when I say things that are obvious, and realize that this deck was probably made for a less sophisticated and knowledgeable audience. But co-create choices with meaning. So this shift from a world where the audience is a passive consumer of the content to a world where the audience has agency, where they have a role to play, is, I think, the fundamental shift in my mind, of storytelling in the 21st century. And what we need to do is to give the people, formerly known as the audience, an opportunity to play a role, to allow them choices that feel impactful. And so this is, this to me is sort of the fundamental table stakes of immersive storytelling and frankly, of just next generation 21st century storytelling. Okay, so one of the best examples that I ever had of that shift and one that will stay with me forever was Carne Irena. And I can't see everyone's hands, but I would normally now ask, how many of you got the chance to do this? Or maybe James, you can see everyone. Like, did anyone do this? A few people. I see you looking. Okay. Anyway, the story here, for those of you who don't know it, is that you are a immigrant crossing the border from Mexico, maybe coming from Central America up through Mexico to come into the United States. To join this, you start by being put in a holding tank. You take your shoes off. You walk out into this sandy, dirty space, and you feel like you're in the desert. There's a VR headset that's put on you, and it's dawn. Just the sun is just starting to rise, and you're in the middle of the desert. It's actually quite beautiful. You can hear the desert birds, and then you see that there's some people coming towards you, and it's this group of people who've been clearly walking for days in the desert, and they come around you. They're speaking Spanish. It's mothers and children, some young men. Some of them have lost their shoes. They sit to rest. They don't. You seem to be invisible. You don't. I didn't. They didn't see me, but I could move around and hear them, and and there was this amazing spatial audio, so I had real agency to move around. And then all of a sudden you see this light above you, and you feel the blades. There's a chopper that comes down, and you sense that there's a helicopter, which you feel in a multisensory way, the wind, the light. And then you see these border guards drive up in these jeeps, and they're fully armed, and they start screaming at everybody to get down and get down. And they start yelling for the coyote, who I guess was the leader, who was bringing people across the border. And again, you feel like this is a very intense scene because these guys look dangerous, and they have their guns out, and they're pointing them at people. But still, you feel like you're safe, like you're the audience. You're just watching this. And then all of a sudden, one of the border guard patrolmen puts the gun right in your face, looks in your eyes, and says, "Get the hell down!" And it's that intense. Like, you literally, all of a sudden, you're moving for your life. Like, and you have to make this split-second decision: am I going to ignore this, or am I getting in the dirt? And I found myself down in the ground. Like, in a second, I felt like it was survival decision to get down in the ground. And I didn't realize it because, again, I felt I had been invisible as an audience, but all of a sudden I'd been singled out and seen. And it was a metaphor for me of the shift that's happening from media, where you are mediated, where you are safe because it's behind a screen. It's happening out there. You're watching it, you're not living it. And all of a sudden, here I am, literally at the end of a gun, and I am responding with survival instincts to decide to get down. And that to me is, well, one, I will never forget it. Two, it was brilliantly done because it was so realistic, and I was so singled out. It was no longer about a group of people, it was about me. I had gone from being a passive observer to an active participant who was now literally in the dirt. And so, and by the way, this was done by Alejandro Gonzalez Inarritu, the two-time Academy Award winning director. And he literally, the thing he did after he won two Academy Awards for directing movies was to make this piece. I mean, he could have done anything he wanted to, and this was the next thing he did. And interestingly, it won a special technology Academy Award from the Academy for its innovative use of technology in storytelling. The previous winner of that award had been Toy Story, just to give you a sense of how important that award was. Um, okay, so I am a believer that we need to redefine the term audience. Audience seems totally unacceptable anymore for the role that people are playing in these kinds of immersive stories. Audience comes from our history as an oral culture, right? From a root that has to do with listening. And again, it just feels way too passive. And I've struggled for years to come up with a more appropriate term. There's players that is used from gaming. but it also sounds a little too like sleazy to be a player. I don't know. And then there's the version that Janet Murphy used in Hamlet and the Holodeck, which was Interactor, which I also like, but it feels too technical. So I've come up with a new term, which I believe strongly in, which is the Actience. The Actience comes from Actio, which is basically agency, same root for things like action or actor. And I believe from now on, we should be referring to our participants in immersive experiences as the Actience. Okay, little pro tip. Find the way to allow the Actience to invest their own creativity. The secret's to define and limit the options so they're not overwhelmed. Give them the tools and support they need to be successful. So just to unpack this for a second, immersive experiences, and again, forgive me because you all know this intuitively already, but if you can invest yourself in that experience, it is, of course, so much more powerful and meaningful. But it can be overwhelming for the Actians, right? You can't just let them loose with no boundaries, no parameters, um, no direction. So limiting the palette of, or not the palette, limiting the options so that they can decide, so that their agency is not infinite, but they feel like they can make certain decisions and understand what those rules are, will allow for greater success and still allow them to be to have that sense of ownership or co-creation. Okay. I mean, one of my favorite examples of this, and it wasn't exactly an immersive experience, but it was the Johnny Cash project that was done some years ago. I don't know if any of you ever did that. It was Chris Milk and Aaron Koblin, and they made a music video. They kind of cut. It was after Johnny Cash had passed away, and they were here actually because you guys are. I'm going to show this one. I'm going to jump out. I think do I have it here? No, it's not there. Here, let me just unhide this slide so you can see it. Um, so this is a picture of the Johnny Cash project. Basically, what they did was they cut together from B-roll some footage of Johnny Cash. They were trying to create an homage to him from a song that was recorded before he died. And so this was coming out after he passed away. And Chris Milk was a famous both music video producer, director, and also VR expert. But this is before his famous VR work. He cut this together and then it created a website, and fans could go to the website, pull a frame out of the B-roll footage that he'd cut together, just a single frame. And then they had a set of tools which were using just black and white and grays and let you draw the frame. So these pictures you see here were all done by individual fans using the limited set of palette of tools that were just some simple like different weights and versions of black and white basically, and they had fans make these images and then they played the music video with every frame having been created by a different fan, and the piece is hauntingly beautiful. And it became so popular, millions of people made frames, and you can stop it anywhere and watch the frame. And then there are multiple versions of it, but they created this limited tool set and they provided the frame. But every person who made a piece felt like they personally were paying homage to to Johnny Cash, to a musician whose work they loved. So that's a great example of controlled palette and set of tools, and letting people invest themselves and feel tremendous ownership and pride and even community from having done that. Look it up online, you can find it. And then this is one that I just steal again from the hero's journey from Joseph Campbell, which is I think too many creators think of themselves as the be all and end all. They think of themselves as the hero of the story because they're writing it. And I think that we need as authors and auteurs and creators to stop thinking as if we are the gods, but rather to think of our actians as the people whose journey we're trying to empower. And our role is more as a mentor or collaborator as opposed to the sole author. So again, I'm sure you all are already thinking that way, and let's keep going. Okay, immersive. So this is a word that's so overused. I have to acknowledge that. I mean, everything's immersive. You know, you can get the special dinner package at the restaurant, and it's immersive. And so I do think that there's a need for some definition. And in the book, I try a little bit to give some parameters to immersion, and there's a chart or scale of immersion. Um, but the way you really create immersion, right, is world building. Like to me, the opportunity to put somebody into an experience and let them have a embodied, agentic, and emotional experience, which are the sort of three components, at least, that I think are so important for immersion, is by building a world. And so, again, in the book, I go to my favorite world builder, Alex McDowell, and he was the production designer for Minority Report. He did an extraordinary job. He was hired by Spielberg to basically design the world before they had even written a script. And he talks about how the detail and richness of the world building enabled the story to sort of emerge from it. And if one of the things we're trying to do is to let our Actience in and allow them to have their own journeys in their stories, what we really need to be doing is to design for possibility. And the way you design for possibility is by making this very rich world in which many, many stories can evolve, many different paths can be trotted. So switch your mindset from communicating a story to building a world rich in detail from which many stories can originate. Think of the world as the rules of the experience or the conditions under which the action can unfold. And one of my favorite examples for, oops, well, sorry, I'm running ahead. I'm going to take a second and just say, um, well, okay. The one of the great world building teams is, of course, our friends at Meow Wolf, right? I imagine most of you have been to a Meow Wolf experience, and this is sort of focusing on the House of Eternal Return, the original one. And the other thing that's so amazing about building a world like this is that you can play with it, like you can establish the rules of that world. And obviously, Meow Wolf, they intentionally build that world in such a way that it makes you question the design principles of the world you live in, right? They're building floors that are halfway up a floor. They're building risers on steps that are not to code. They're eliminating right angles. They're doing all these things to signal a different kind of world of creativity and possibility. And let me show you this favorite quote of mine from Vince Kadlubeck, who is one of the co-founders. You start with something very relatable, like a refrigerator. Then within that vehicle, you venture down the rabbit hole. If you can provide people with a familiar context and then break that context with new possibilities, they start to realize they have new possibilities within themselves. They realize that the refrigerator is completely different from what it seemed to be, and that in that moment, people also realize that the world can be different from what it seems to be, and that they can be different from what they seem to be. And so I think that's the secret of Meow Wolf, is that they're using their world building to actually get you to re-envision how you see the world and yourself in it. Okay, I'm gonna keep going. So there's this great theory of cognitive science right now, which is called predictive processing. And the idea of predictive processing is that your brain's trying to save energy, and so and operate efficiently. And so all the data that it's taking in, instead of actually giving you an accurate picture of reality, your brain is making a projection of what, based on history, it thinks is going to happen next. You know, you walk up to a door and you understand that if you turn the handle and pull it, it's going to open. That basically your brain is not showing you the actual door, it's kind of predicting for you what's going to happen. Like basically, we're all just kind of dreaming our way through or having hallucinations based on past experience. And it's a way of basically like saving processing time. And it's why we do sometimes, like, we're not always clued into all of the amazing details in the world. We are literally sort of co-creating or creating reality because our mind is anticipating and creating a little projection of what's coming. Um, so Dr. Sarah Lynn Bauman is a uh, professor of transformative play initiatives, and I love this. You know, she says this, and we'll come back to Sarah in a little bit about some LARPing because that's really her expertise. But this idea that our Actience is creating the world that they see all the time, and something like Meow Wolf is messing with it. It's screwing with your ability to predict because you're expecting that step to be 8 inches because that's what every step is because that's what code says it's supposed to be. And this one's 9.5 or 4, and it's messing with your ability to rely on that predictive analysis. And so therefore it's making you stop and think and actually pay attention and perhaps even see the world with fresh eyes. I mean, maybe with like childlike eyes. And I think that's a huge part of what we all are trying to do is to get us to look at the world not through our tired and cost and energy saving eyes, but through really fresh eyes of wonder and amazement like young people do. Okay, so I also want to just say that or remind us that it's not just about the world building. It's also about understanding and the rich detail. By the way, let me just emphasize again, you can't have too much detail in world building. Like the history, the economics, the temperature, the culture. Like you should know everything about your world. And if you do, then that comes through and that depth is built in and enables people to discover things. Sky, Children of the Light was a mobile game, free mobile game created by Genoa Chen, who's the brilliant game designer who's done a number of indie games that are so beloved, Journey, Flower, others. That game company is his company. And this was a game where he designed it in such a way that it encourages people to gift to each other. The money and they made a lot of money from this game is all from micro purchases in the game. And because of the way they designed the rules of the game, people were encouraged to give things to each other. And 22% of all the money, which was millions of dollars that's been spent in this game, was spent on giving gifts to other people. Imagine that you in your gameplay, instead of buying up new, stronger guns or armor or enhancing your own superhero qualities, you're instead spending your money on gifting to other people. And what that it gave me such hope when I spoke to him because it reminded me that all of the construction that we've done of our own world is based on a set of rules and, if you will, physics that have decisions that have been made by people that have led us to where we are, and that we could design a game world, a story world, or our own world in a way for different outcomes. I mean, we could design our own world to be gifting to each other instead of trying to defeat each other or compete with each other. Anyway, I just wanted to remind you that as world builders and storytellers, your ability to set the rules of that world have a tremendous impact on how people play or live, or the stories that are created and the interactions that are created in that world. Simple pro tip: stay consistent. Don't break the world. As Felix Barrett says, you don't want them to wake up from the dream. He said they've spent sometimes millions of dollars just to prevent there being a single ray of light from the outside breaking into a punch drunk theatrical show. But it is so important to stay consistent in every detail of that world, inside the rules of that world. Okay, let's go to embodiment. So design for all the senses rather than design just for the eyes and ears. Instead, take advantage of the myriad of other senses we have at our disposal. Build a multisensory language that takes advantage of the way our physicality informs our thoughts and feelings. So this is just insane to me when I think about it, but almost every story we consume is consumed through our eyes and our ears. Two senses. Science suggests we have somewhere between 20 and 30 senses in our bodies. Ability to know where we are in space, ability to sense temperature, ability to feel our own heart rate and blood flow, interoception. Like there are a myriad of senses, and we've been painting every painting in two colors. Like why? Why are we doing that? What? Imagine if you had 30 colors instead of two colors. You do. So take advantage of it. Why? And in doing that, we need to build a language of it. I mean, we're just not used to it. We're our tools of storytelling have been so limited that we've everything's been audio and visual. We're new to this, and our Actience is new to it. And so we have a mature language of cinema. We know about montage and pans and cuts and all of that. We don't know about really how to build a language to the body. So that's a challenge to all of you, to all of us, to really think about that and work on it. Um, One of my favorite examples, just to illustrate this point, is this one on the Bridgerton, the Queen's Ball, which Netflix created as one of their immersive experiences that was traveling around to let fans, you know, fulfill their fantasy of being in the world. And the picture on the right there shows a woman. And by the way, most of the people came dressed to the nines, in Regent era England outfits. That woman is in her jean jacket and her sneakers. But they designed this simple thing where you got to queue up and be presented to the queen. And you can see the queen sitting there on her couch, and she's frankly bored as hell. And she's intentionally sort of not paying attention. And every person I watch should come and do this extraordinary curtsy. Like they brought their whole soul to that bow. They showed up, and honest to God, it was like they'd been waiting their whole lives for this moment to be able to present in this elaborate and beautiful. It was something between a bow, a curtsy, some ballet move. Like everybody just brought themselves to that simple action because they had longed. It was a fantasy in their lives to be able to be presented to the queen. And what a brilliant thing. Like people, it was emotionally powerful for the people to bring their own creativity to an elaborate presentation to the queen, and they will remember it forever. And it cost almost nothing for them to do. And it was so brilliant because that is what I mean by embodied storytelling, a language for the body, getting someone to improvise their own perfect curtsy. Okay. This is one that was really meaningful for me. I don't know, again, how many of you got to go to Disney Star Wars Galactic Star Cruiser experience, but I am of the age where I grew up with Star Wars, like around when I was 12, I think it came out. And that's right around when I started to fence seriously. My dad was a two-time Olympic champion, Olympian, US national champion. And so I was a fencer and a Star Wars freak. And so my lifelong fantasy was to wield a lightsaber. I mean, I felt like I'd been training for it my whole life. And they let me do it. And it was brilliant. It was so well done. I wish you could have all done it. You held a lightsaber. It felt like a lightsaber. They explained that since this was a class, they put a protective sheath on it, like which is why you couldn't actually, cut things, but it felt perfect. And then those little red circular things on the wall would shoot a blaster at you, and you had to learn how to parry or block the blaster shot in the different quadrants. And you could do it. And when we did it correctly, the blaster shot literally hit your lightsaber and haptically vibrated and changed color, and you felt like you had done it. And then they turned off the thing that was showing you where they were coming from, and you had to do it just using the force, and it worked. Like so good. And by the way, my friends who I went with, was a FOST Explorers Club trip. There were like a dozen of us. They were like, "Hey, Charlie, you're really good at that." And I was like, "Yeah, I used to fence." Anyway, okay, fantasy come true. Pro tip: experiment with your own body and see how different actions and gestures make you feel. I mean, that's the thing. We're so unused to creating a language for the body. We don't even know how all these things feel. And we're so disconnected from our bodies. I just can't believe how much time I spend like this in my life. Literally, my body is changed because I spend all this time on my phone. Like I'm so disconnected from my body. And I really, you know what? I blame our media, like, and our technology, for that. That's not how it used to be. Like when we had this wonderful cultural anthropologist come speak at the Future of Storytelling Summit, Mike Welsh, and he had studied pre-literate tribes in Papua New Guinea, and he describes what it was like when somebody would tell a story or somebody would play music, and everybody participated. Like somebody was playing drums and somebody else was, sticks, and everybody was either dancing or singing. It was a live, social, embodied, communal experience. How did we get from that to this? Okay, responsiveness. So this is huge. And this is really, we're so at the beginning of this. I mean, we all know about personalization. If we can say, hi, James, when you should walk into the store, James is more likely to buy something or get a drink. But responsiveness is a step further than that. It's about having a dialogue. It's not just one way, it's about being able to understand and see and read the Actience and actually respond or change or in real time. So establish a dialogue with the Actience. You aren't just conveying a story in one direction now, but taking input and feedback from the Actience while the story is unfolding. This enables your story to be personalized and responsive. And there are all these new high tech and low tech ways of accomplishing this. This is, let's just say this is what happens in a genius one-on-one in a punch drunk experience. And I had one that blew my mind with an actress who took me into a private space and had me auditioning for the role of the leading man in The Drowned Man. And I left that experience changed. I mean, I've told the story hundreds of times. I won't tell it now. You can go online and hear me tell the story, but it literally changed the way I thought about being, how I wanted to consume stories. It has and it's because she was there and responsive, and I had to make decisions, and we were in this dance. And so that's what we have to get to. Stories need to stop being one way and fixed, and they need to start to be two ways and responsive. This was the other one that blew my mind and shocked my world. Alice, the VR play. We had this at Foss. This was from the DV group in Paris. And basically, this was the first time that I had had an interaction with a digital character that was multisensorial. So you put on a VR headset, you say hello to all of a sudden you see you're in your Alice, and this rabbit comes to you and he starts to talk to you in his British accent. And he's like, "Alice, sing me a song." And I was like, "I don't sing so well. I'm not going to sing you a song." He's like, "Come on, sing me a song." And I start to sing. He's like, "No wonder you didn't want to sing." Because you sound, because I can't carry a tune. Anyway, I'm getting heckled and ridiculed in a very funny way by a digital character who then reaches out and taps me on the shoulder. I'm like, "Oh, how's that possible?" And then encourages me to reach down and pick up the mushroom. And I take a bite, and there's a real mushroom, and it's sweet, and it's a candy. Like they had figured out how to merge the analog and digital to have a responsive real time experience. Afterwards, I got to see how they do it. There was a man, an actor wearing a head rig and a mocap suit that in real time was being captured into the digital world that I was standing in. And then there was a second person who was a ninja who was there to make sure that when I reached down for the mushroom, that the mushroom was where my hand was, so I could pick it up. And the actor played three different roles, the Cheshire Cat and Humpty Dumpty, and all they did was like switch digital characters on the computer, and he changed his voice, and all of a sudden he was a different character, and he could literally touch me on the shoulder, and all these things could happen. And again, like, you want to talk about future of storytelling? Hey, this is future of storytelling stuff. You're in it. You basically be in Toy Story, but no longer watching it. You're a character in it, and it's not two-dimensional. It's three-dimensional and multisensorial. Pro tip: the more personal and customized, the more meaningful. Obvious pro tips, super super obvious, but the more you can be responsive and personalized and customized, the better. I always love to tell the story of when I was my son was very young. At night, I would get into bed and he would say, "Daddy, story from head," and he would want me to tell him a story that I made up. And we had this character, this running character named Sparky, which was loosely based on Daniel. And so every day there would be a story and it would be about his life, and he'd sort of recognize himself in the story and ask questions. It was a way to process the day and have fun. And it was tremendous pressure on me to be creative with the storytelling. Like that's responsive, personalized storytelling. right? That's the ability to make a story that's only for Daniel and is so meaningful to him that it actually helps him to understand and learn and grow. That kind of storytelling is about to be possible. And there's AI and sensors and haptics and all these different technologies that are going to be able to feed that type of storytelling. Okay. Um, and a great example is Lucy, who is the first AI actress. And she's in Wolves in the Walls, which was an extraordinary and award-winning VR experience from Fable Studios. And Lucy draws you, she creates you, you're her imaginary character, but she also knows you, she remembers you, she interacts with you. She develops a rapport. You feel a connection and empathy with Lucy. It's extraordinary. It again totally works, and this little girl wins your heart because she cares about you. So, and this is done years ago, and it was like the very, very beginnings of AI. Uh, just think how much more powerful that's going to be, or could be even now. Um, Another Wilson Wall. Uh, the goal is to make the Actians feel heard, seen, and understood. Strive for an empathetic connection. And that's what they did so beautifully with Lucy. And that's what we need to do in our world building for our Actians. Um, Again, talking about AI, because you can't really ignore that right now. This is the Johnny Walker Princess Street experience in Edinburgh. Uh, Frank, I know we've done it together. Uh, this is one, the brilliant thing that well, there are many things that are wonderful here. It was designed by BRC. Um, but one of my favorites was that when you came in, there was a little questionnaire on a tablet. You answered 5 or 6 questions about like things you like to eat or drink or whatever. And they give you, based on that and a large AI database, they're able to predict your palate, your taste preferences from some simple questions. And then they give you a little wristband that identifies whether you're somebody that likes savory or sweet or smoky or fruity or and the secret insight for marketers was that a lot of young people, and particularly women, don't think of themselves as scotch drinkers. They're like, oh, I don't like that. And that's a problem that they have. And so they realize that they when they give you a free drink, which they're going to do on this tour, if the first sip of that first drink, you go, huh, that's pretty good. I like that. Then they've switched you from being somebody who doesn't drink scotch to somebody who's now open to being a scotch drinker. And and it totally works. They know how to mix the right drinks depending on the AI predicted taste preferences that you have, and they can feed you a drink, serve you a drink that you're going to enjoy and like. And it's just really changes the relationship with those customers in a profound way. Okay. Sorry, I'm probably taking way too long. I need to keep going. Social. Okay. Making it social makes it more meaningful. Again, it's obvious. We're social animals. We like to be with people. We pay more attention when we're dealing with other people. Um, Give people opportunities to act, play, and work together. It's not only strengthens people's relationship with one another, but also makes your experience more memorable. It can be something as big as solving a puzzle together or as small as strangers introducing themselves to one another, right? James knows this. There's a reason he does that breakout at the beginning of this session, right? We want to get to know each other. um, uh, Everything is actually more meaningful when it is shared. And so this is one of the things that I'm most excited about, honestly, about immersive storytelling, is that it actually is a kind of story telling or doing or living. I actually like living stories instead of storytelling. There is a kind of story living stories that lets people connect with each other. We live in an age where, as we all know from Robert Putnam and Bowling Alone, which is 25 years old, where he first identified that correlation, inverse correlation between people watching TV and having TVs in their homes and basically watching alone versus bowling together. As they started to stop going to being in bowling leagues and other kind of communal activities. And then Putnam updated this book with the whole set of insights around what social media is doing, and it just accelerated this trend in a crazy way. So, of course, we all, ironically named social media is anti-social media in many ways, and it has created or contributed to a sense of alienation and insecurity and aloneness. We have the ability with our living stories to get us out of the antisocial century, and get us back. And I'd actually like to see us turning story into an action verb. We're going to start to story together. Um, Escape rooms are my favorite example of this. You literally can't get out of them if you don't work together well. Like they're designed for social interaction and building teams and building communication and collaboration. This is The Alchemist in Amsterdam. If you haven't done it, I highly recommend it. It's beautiful. It's also just a wonderful reminder that escape rooms are moving beyond just simple puzzle solving into elaborate story worlds and sometimes with deep narrative, sometimes with character. This one is like a jewel. It's so beautifully done from the team Sherlock, Victor Van Dorn's company. Um, so yes, so designing our story worlds and our story experiences and our living stories in such a way as to encourage teamwork, collaboration, communication. Uh, this is where I believe living stories are headed. And one of the things that is so exciting about them to get us out of, bowling alone. Another beautiful example of that was Secret Cinema's The Shawshank Redemption. In this moment, I went in alone in London when I went to do this, and I didn't know what story world I was entering into. I just know that I was stripped down and put in prison fatigues and then thrown into a jail, and felt very scary and intimidating. And you were wandering around alone, and then I started to meet a couple of people, and then we found ourselves in this corridor. With the warden up top telling us to be quiet, and somebody started to sing, and somebody else started to sing, and all of a sudden 300 or so of us are singing in unison in this very beautiful way where our voice was bringing us together and showed us that we had power as a group. And it was I left feeling more connected to humanity than I had ever in an immersive experience before. So just a nice example of how good immersive experience design can create a sense of connectiveness, shared awe, that brings us together. Um, Pro tip, find ways to get the Actians collaborating, relying on each other. Can they solve a problem, as in an escape room, or sing and dance together, as in ABBA Voyage? Can you provide them with a sense of group or team accomplishment? And again, I think ABBA Voyage is another wonderful example for us to talk about. There you are, 3,000 people standing up, dancing, singing together. Like that thing works in part because everybody agrees together that it is working, right? It's not just an animated film of a concert. It is actually a concert that we are there experiencing together. Um, okay, and transformation. Let's just get into this. Provide the conditions for identity, exploration, and processing. When people have alibi to be something other than themselves, they can get to explore new parts of their personality, of their own personality. These discoveries can then bleed into their real lives. This is where transformation happens. In other words, they can be changed in a way that has permanence. If you haven't all read Joe Pine's book on this, you really should, because he speaks much more eloquently and than I do about it. Um, I've been very lucky to talk to and learn from a lot of great people who've done work in this space. These terms, by the way, alibi and bleed, come from the LARPing community, from live action role playing community, and there. Um, I mean, my mentor in this was Sarah Lynn Bauman, the woman I introduced to you earlier, who teaches and researches around what happens in shared played living experiences, LARPs. And she tells her own story that I recount in the book of how she played in a LARP that was called A Little Bit of Loving. It was about the AIDS pandemic in New York in the 80s. And she was a person with anxiety and maybe a little fear, and she plays a character, and through living life over a weekend as this character, she comes to find a kind of peace about her own death. And that was an insight that led to some change for her in her real life. And so that's the idea. Sorry, this is an image from that LARP. again, where people were playing assigned different roles and playing characters that were very different than themselves, with high stakes. Um, Aliveness and safety are two of the essential ingredients for deep engagement. Aliveness comes from unpredictability, imperfection, surprise, and discovery. So, if it's overly perfect and prescripted, then it doesn't actually feel alive. So, it's important to build those imperfections in. And then safety is hugely important. Obviously, physical safety for people not to get hurt, but emotional safety. And Sarah Lynn Bauman says that she always uses this expression, the door is always open at the beginning of these experiences as a way to say, you can always step out and your well-being is more important than you staying in or than this. And in fact, by giving somebody that permission to leave, it often allows people to go even deeper. Um, Another amazing experience that we talk about in the book is the Crossroads Foundation. And this is a group in Hong Kong that puts on these scenarios. Really, what they're doing is immersive theater plays, but they take on social issues like being a refugee. And they have been so successful and they're so realistic and so powerful that they have been invited for many years to Davos by the Davos organization to put them on for world political leaders and business leaders. So here you even see Richard Branson in the middle of this experience where he's had to flee his country and has no money and is surrounded by people who don't speak his language and people come out of this and say, like, I've studied this topic for years. I've read all the white papers. I learned more in these 3 hours about this than I've ever from all the things I've read. And I guess really this is also a note that I want to make about um, that transformation can be personal in terms of being able to identify something different about yourself from that experience and perhaps keep that with you on an ongoing basis. But it also can be more large scale, more societal. These scenarios or experiences that Crossroads put on at Davos have probably ended up reallocating millions of dollars and major decisions at governmental levels because of the power and the ability to put somebody for these wealthy elites to be put in the shoes of people who are suffering from these issues or these problems. Um, so experiences stick with us more when we have the space to reflect on and process them. Give audiences this opportunity within your experience to increase the likelihood that it'll be remembered and transformative. So it's an important part of the Crossroads experience that afterwards they do a debrief. One of my good friends from the LARPing world says that they use the term frothing. They get together after a LARP in a pub and over a pint of beer, each of them tells the story, recounts their adventure in the LARP. And in that retelling, it makes sense to them and they now own it. They are the hero in that story that they're telling. And because of that, it sticks with them, it stays with them, it can be transformative, it can have lasting meaning and change for them. So a lot of different people use different terms for this, but it's a super important part of it. I would highly recommend providing the space for it. The only true voyage of discovery would be not to visit strange lands, but to possess other eyes, to behold the universe through the eyes of another. Marcel Proust. I think that ultimately is one of the great powers of immersive storytelling. It is that opportunity to let you see the world through different eyes. Stories have always done this for us, right? They've provided a safe way for us to understand and relate to the experience of, say, a different character or a hero in some adventure from a safe distance. Immersive stories let us step into those shoes and experience it ourselves. So they are by definition much more powerful and memorable. In fact, there's a lot of science around that too. Annie Murphy Paul in her book The Extended Mind references a great study where they work with actors and they ask a group of actors who've learned their lines over from the script to recount the lines like 5 months later. And then they also ask a group of actors who've learned their lines while physically blocking it, while they're physically on set and doing different gestures as they say the lines. And the people who learn the lines while they're physically blocking have much higher retention of those lines, 6 months later than the people who learn them off a sheet of paper. So anyway, that's just a little bit of science to support my claim, which is that this is more memorable. But ultimately, I think the place I'd like to leave you is this thought that I've had about, and maybe I'll stop the screen now and just say this, stop sharing. Our whole lives, the stories we've consumed have been passively experienced. We've watched from this safe distance, and as we can yell at the television, but it doesn't change the outcome of the story. And we've never been able to change the outcome of any of those stories that we've consumed. And I believe that that's left us feeling passive. The lesson we take from all of that kind of storytelling is that we don't have agency. We are impotent. Now imagine a world where every one of the stories you've experienced since childhood, you and your parents or your friends have been able to be the heroes, to do the adventure and have a huge outcome, a huge impact on the outcome of that story. Now think about how you're going to show up in your real world when you've left your lifetime of learning from your stories with the message being that you have the power. I believe that that's going to create a generation of people who grow up believing that they can make a real difference in the world, that they can change the world. And that's why I'm so excited about immersive storytelling, is because I think we hold the keys to making a better world. Thank you.
Amen, Charlie.